I know I've got students back there. Okay, so I want to welcome. You can't. Okay. How about now? Is that better? Testing? I don't even hear it on.
The microphones are for the television.
Okay. All right, so we'll just project. We can do that. All right, so I want to welcome you all to the Lafayette League of Women Voters public meeting entitled Envisioning Lafayette in 5 Years, Be Concrete. An important mission of the League of Women Voters is to encourage active and informed participation in government. We strive to do this in a nonpartisan way, in part by not endorsing candidates. It is our hope that through meetings like this one, we can encourage people to gather information, inquire about issues, and be motivated to take action. League membership is open to anyone who is interested in joining us. On behalf of the Lafayette League, my name is Kathleen Schott Espinoza, and I will moderate the discussion this afternoon. I'd like to start by thanking Mr. Ed Bowie and the AOC Community Media for hosting and broadcasting this event. And on a personal note, there are a lot of students here from the University of Louisiana, from one of my geography classes there, and many of whom will finish within the next couple of years in the College of Education, Dr. Cooper. So we are grateful today, certainly, to have with us an esteemed panel of officials from business, education, and government. With us today are Dr. Paula Carson, Assistant Vice President for Institutional Planning and Effectiveness at the University of Louisiana at Lafayette, Mr. Bruce Conk, Vice President of Marketing and Governmental Relations with the Greater Lafayette Chamber of Commerce, Dr. Pat Cooper, Superintendent of Lafayette Parish Schools, Mr. Joey Durrell, City Parish President from the Lafayette Consolidated Government. All right, thank you. All right, so we're going to start with one question to all of the panelists. Each of you will have 5 minutes to respond. The first question is, what does your organization wish to achieve or begin what process over the next 5 years? And we'll start with you, Dr. Carson.
Thank you. So delighted to be here to be representing UL and other organizations with which I'm engaged, LIDA and Losandra International, which is a division of LCG. Really honored to be here with this esteemed panel and hope that I can bring you some insights. So I'm gonna talk about UL primarily and how we're working with these other organizations. But one of the first things that we are going to do that we're very focused on strategically is accomplishing the state's new master plan, the Board of Regents Education Master Plan. It came out just a couple of months ago, and it is very different in tenor than previous master plans because it focuses on economic development and our ability to place students in careers that are not only careers that they like and enjoy, but careers that are viable for them economically and also that contribute to the success of the state. So there are a couple of new programs that we are going to be implementing over the next couple of years. One is an adult degree completion program. We have an inordinate number of students in the state of Louisiana who have come to college and completed maybe a year or two of college and then for a variety of reasons have dropped out, gone on with their lives, and now they're incapable of actually leaving those lives and coming back on campus and being a traditional full-time student. So we're looking at online courses. We have the enabling technology to do that, and we're able to reach anybody in any remote community where they are, and we're able to do that effectively. And we're also looking at altering the traditional semester model, which no one really knows how it came about or why we're still actually using it. So we're looking at more compressed type models and timing, and we are just this last month, we began offering our first 7-week courses. It's an adult degree completion for those who have an RN degree from an associate degree RN to give them a BSN in a very, very short time frame, which obviously meets one of the state's economic development and occupational needs. We're also looking at a whole lot of new program development. Obviously, you all have heard that we're in the midst of a great deal of budget cuts in higher ed, and so we are scaling back some programs that are no longer really viable for our students or for our state, but we are at the same time very, very aggressively implementing a lot of new programs in accordance with Louisiana Economic Development, LED's Blue Ocean strategy, and looking and using a lot of occupational data and projections about what our economy is going to look like in the future. We are also not just working on the adult population, we are beginning to focus on helping younger students, much younger students, understand what college is and to help them get ready for college. We have a fully blown implemented program that we deliver to 6th graders right now, but we are looking over the next year at really engaging with the elementary schools to help them begin to understand that from your first day in school, you are in essence beginning your career planning. And we have been very successful, particularly in what we call STEM education. STEM education focuses on the sciences and engineering and math programs where the United States is falling behind in terms of competitive nations. We're also, and this is very important, we are also very closely working with SLCC, the community college, who in July will merge with the Acadiana Technical College, ATC, and Dr. Cooper will probably say K-12 as well, and what we are looking at doing is creating a very seamless integration of educational experience from the time a student enters school, hopefully at 3 or 4 will become the standard for us all the way to the time they finish with a graduate degree. We are, SLCC is teaching on our campus, we have our students on their campus, and we are trying to make it just really a smooth transition as students move forward. This is necessitated by the fact that we are forced this year to significantly increase our admission standards. Probably about 25% of the students we admitted at UL this year will not meet the new admission standards starting in the fall. And that could have a potentially devastating impact for a lot of students, for a lot of specific demographic students, those from different socioeconomic backgrounds, and we are doing everything we can to remediate and to get them college ready and academically prepared. The other thing we're obviously implementing is our master plan. You've probably seen a lot about that on the news. Hopefully you have all been engaged. We are primarily focusing there on a couple of things, creating a residential experience with living learning opportunities, as well as our research campus, which is out there by the Cajun Dome and the health facilities right now. We are very much looking at inviting and encouraging businesses to be part of that, and we are also looking at expanding our intellectual property abilities so that when our faculty members and our staff work with those in outside businesses, that we are able to patent those things and to generate revenue. We're also, and I'll be closing here, we're also very engaged with our economic development community. We work with our local businesses in 3 ways. Service learning, we have classes go out, particularly with nonprofits, and work for free. We have traditional contracts and grant arrangements, and then we were just recently awarded by the National Science Foundation, the only such center in the state. It's a very interesting membership model where corporations buy into and pay a membership fee, and in exchange they get to request, and they are recipients of the intellectual property produced by a cohort of really our most advanced and accomplished academics and researchers in science and engineering. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Conk.
I would like to just basically ditto what Dr. Carlson said earlier. Thank you for the opportunity. As a Chamber of Commerce, we operate on 3 action words, and they would be advocate, innovate, and collaborate. We have come to realize that to accomplish growing our community and envisioning the future, we cannot be a standalone organization. However, our main core, our basic philosophy is to advocate for business, and we continue to do so. To the extent that in the last couple of years we've actually had a full-time lobbyist speaking on behalf of business in Baton Rouge, and of course we are very active at the local level and the national level. Innovate is our second action word. Here in Acadiana, we are very, very fortunate. We have a strong entrepreneurial spirit, and our mission in that particular area is to enhance and to grow that entrepreneurial spirit. The other day, I heard a comment from a leader of Executive Director Greg Gautreaux, where he made the observation that people come to Lafayette who may not have lived here before. They take a position, a high position in a company, and at some point, they reach that ladder of progress where they have to make a decision. If they want to increase their viability within that company, they need to move. In many cases, they don't. They stay in Lafayette, they quit the job, and they form their own company. And that's the type of innovation and entrepreneurism that we want to communicate, that we want to see thrive even more. But for us to be able to do the first 2 action words, our key word is collaborate. Over the past couple of years, we have made every effort to work with groups like LUPESC, like the Acadiana Regional Alliance, with LEADA. And while we are an advocacy group, we understand that we play a major role in economic development, but we can't do it alone. So we do it with LIDA. So there's a partnership. It's a natural extension of our mission working with them. But we go even further than that. Just a couple of weeks ago, we signed a compact where we created the Acadiana Southwest Louisiana Super Region, the first of its kind. We actually brought together in a collaborative effort Lake Charles and Lafayette and the parishes that border I-10 as well as US 90 going south. We're bringing together 13 parishes that will have one goal, and that's to further economic development in this particular area. That's more or less an extension of another group in which we were a charter member, and that's the Acadiana Regional Alliance. Another example of how organizations getting together, having a common purpose, can be successful. The Acadiana Regional Alliance, although it's not very well known, is a very strong political advocacy group. It's made up of chambers of commerce, originally 9 parishes, now we're at 13 parishes. And we are acting as a group, and our current mission is to see the completion of I-49 South. That's our whole focus at this time. So we're bringing together not only the folks who would benefit from I-49 South directly, but those folks along I-10 who also would benefit from that improvement of US 90 to interstate standards. So collaboratively, we have been successful. Where do we go from here? I see Patrick Williams in the audience. We're working with LEPESC. And thanks to LEPESC and the involvement of LEPESC and the 9 organizations, the founding organizations, we were able to participate in the selection of our new school superintendent. And we were very successful in that endeavor. He had that support, he has that support, he will have that support. And LEPESC is 9 organizations, and I think we're growing to 13 very shortly. We are nonprofits, not-for-profits, but we have a concern about the future of our community. If we're going to grow the businesses, and that is our goal in the Chamber of Commerce, you have to have a quality of place in which people want to live, work, and play. And we can't do it by ourselves in the Chamber of Commerce. We need to collaborate, we need to partner with other organizations. We are in a community, and if you look at the word community, what are the last 5 letters? Unity. And that's the way we need to approach everything we do in this community. We have to understand what impact will it have short-term and long-term. We have to vision the future. And I'm sure Joey's going to touch on the comprehensive plan. That is a major component. And one of the issues that I'd like to address later is how do we get the LCG planning process, how do we get UL's planning process, LIDA, Lafayette Parish School System, how do we get them to play together? Because the common goal is to better our community. And that's going to be one of our challenges that we bring forward. Thank you.
Well, let me just say this to start with. I am so excited about being in Lafayette. Even after 2 months and floods and and I can just tell you one of the reasons I'm very excited is because of the folks here on this panel. Joey just welcomed me with open arms. President Savoy, Chamber, just everybody is on board to try to make things better. The buck stops with me and with the school district in order for us to produce the kind of school district that you want and that you need. I understand that. So partnerships are wonderful, but at the end of the day, you know, when the test scores come out, you know, that's something I have to deal with. Now, I'm going to be very honest with you. Test scores are not uppermost on my mind. And I'll tell you where we want this school district to be in 5 years. We want, and it's a mantra that I have, it's called 100% in, 100% out. We want 100% of our students who start kindergarten and who don't move away to finish high school. Not 70%, not 75%, but 100%. So that's the first thing you have to understand, that within the next 5 years, or at least the next 4, I don't know if I'll be here on the 5th, hopefully I will, but we want that to happen. And that's really important to understand. I'm not demeaning the test score thing, but if you do that, if you have 100% of your students who finish school, you're going to have the basic normal curve. Everybody's not going to go to Harvard or college or even maybe a 2-year college. But everybody's going to walk out of high school with an opportunity to do whatever they want to do. So I think it's more important that we look at it in terms of we're gonna have 100% completion, and those children aren't gonna have babies. You know, and I know that's something, why is the superintendent talking about that? Well, because if we have a lot of teenagers that are having babies, what we find out is that those babies are the very ones that start school in the bottom quartile, and then they don't know any different, so they grow up and they have babies as teenagers. And so there's a real connection there with what we want to do. And those young mothers are the ones that drop out. And then they have a second and a third baby. And then all of a sudden we have this underclass of folks, not in terms of their worth as a person, but in terms of the poverty and all the other things that they require. So that's really important to me that you understand that as a community. The test scores are going to get better. But if what happens in Lafayette that I want to happen is your test scores will probably never be the highest in the state, because we're going to graduate 100% of the kids, or we're going to have 100% of those kids complete high school, either with a GED or a high school diploma or certificate of completion, with no baby, no drug habit, no criminal record, and healthy. Now, wouldn't that be something wonderful for Lafayette? You know, so you have to understand, I'm not negating the testing process. We have to do it. There's certain things the feds have us do and the state has us do, and we're going to get better on our test scores. But in all honesty, that is not the sign of a great school district. The sign of a great school district is that we've constructed ourselves to save every single child, with no blame, no excuses. We can't say, oh, they're from the north part of the parish, or they're black, or they're redneck, or they're they're ESL, or they don't have parents that do the right. See, that's all just excuses that we make up as educators. We have the ability in Lafayette, with the partnerships that everybody's offering us, to make sure everybody completes school. So that's one of the things I wanted to make sure you understood. So don't think I'm not concerned about test scores, and they will get better. But that is a very superficial issue. And I want you to really think about that. One of the things that we found in previous places where I've been superintendent is that we've been able to do this model, and all of a sudden juvenile crime went down. All of a sudden, our insurance rates went down because we had healthier staff and all those kind of things. So in answer to the question, I guess, where do we want to be in 5 years? We want to be a world-class school district. And world-class, we have to define that as a community. But to me, it's exactly what I told you. We're going to produce for you kids who can either go to college, go to technical school, go right to work, but they're going to have portals that identify what their specific needs are, and then we're going to have that matched up with the community's specific needs, and the partnerships that we'll have with members of the chamber and with the city and with ULL are going to all help that. You're going to see some major league changes come April 1st because we're going to unveil our new plan. Everybody's not going to like everything, but everything's going to be research-based. And so even if you don't like it, if we can show that it works and it's research-based, I think we can convince people that it's the way to go. Thank you.
Thank you, and appreciate being here with this panel. It shows the collaboration that we already have, just the fact that we were invited together. When you talk about what we want Lafayette to look like 5 years from now, I think in terms of goals. And, in the position that I'm in, it's kind of a strange thing because you need government to run. You need the ditches cleaned and roads to be taken care of and trash to be picked up or whatever it is. And yet that would happen fine without the politicians. Government would work mostly fine without the politicians. I think part of our job is to provide a vision for the future. And there are some things that have to be decided politically sometimes. But, ultimately, my goal is to make Lafayette and have Lafayette be the best place to live and raise a family. That to me is the ultimate goal. And if you accomplish that, then I think everything else are the details and you get everything else. I often say, I've even said it to everybody up here, it really is all about economic development. And while that sometimes sounds different to some people, it's about individual economic development. As I say often, you can have great churches, you can have great hospitals, you can have great schools, you could maybe one day have great infrastructure, but if you don't have a job, if your children don't have a job, they are out of here. They're gone. And one of the things that we talked about it this morning at another panel discussion I was on with the comprehensive plan, that we have something very unique in this area of our unique state that we need to preserve. And the comprehensive plan is one of those things that we think can help us preserve that unique culture that we have here. But if people have to leave here to get jobs in Seattle or North Carolina or Arizona, none of this really matters. Because in the end, that's what I think for most of the people I see in here, I think at least our goal should be that our kids can stay here if they choose to stay here. You know, I've often said if my kids want snow-peaked mountains, we can't help them with that. You know, if they want blue water lake somewhere, we can't help them with that. But if they want to stay here and they want to support their family, they have to have a job. So it's important to me that as we go through this comprehensive plan process, that everybody is involved, that you give your opinions, you give your input. And 5 years from now, what I want to see is all of you walking around the horse farm, enjoying an unbelievable area that we can have in Lafayette. I believe we have already changed the direction that Lafayette's going with our fiber optics. I believe Lafayette will look different 20 years from now than it would have looked based on the kind of jobs I think that will be produced as a result of that, the kind of publicity, the kind of direction that Lafayette's going. I think we will have a better opportunity of having good, clean, high-paying jobs in our community that will accomplish that ultimate goal, which is to have everybody have the opportunity to make a living here. You know, so, you know, roads, you know, we will continue to do. I mean, that's, you know, when I saw concrete, first thing I thought of was, you know, my responsibility, and at least I'll perceive it as roads, and that's concrete. But, you know, we will continue to do everything we can. We have taken over roads from the state because, and I'll give you a good example, Colley Saloom Road between Ambassador Caffrey and Highway 733 was projected, and you know how government is about projections. They projected Colley Saloom Road to be done in 2028. Well, that's, they won't get in car accidents, they'll be shooting each other. You know, I mean, it'll be a bad, bad place. I mean, and so we took over that road from the state, and we accomplished two things by doing that. Ambassador Caffrey South would not be built today had we not taken over Colley Saloom Road, because the state has a prohibition of how many miles they can own. So we had to trade miles. So we took that road over for that reason, and it gave us responsibility and gave us opportunity to control our own destiny. We need to do more of that. We're talking to the state now about taking over more roads, and the state's talking to us because the state is at a point where they're at a point now of maintenance only. And so parishes over the years have, the state has taken more and more roads over from parishes, and which has caused the state to have responsibilities that are probably more logically our responsibility. And so, you know, for me, and I think for this government, our goal is for our kids to have the opportunity to stay here. We wouldn't force them, you know, we can't do that. You know that you can make your kids come in time, so you're not going to be able to force them to stay if they don't want to. But so I think in working, we'll talk more about how we're going to work together, and we are, and I think we're doing a pretty good job of it. And I think it all begins with communication, and we'll talk about that in a few more minutes. Thank you.
Okay. So our next question, each of you will have 5 minutes to discuss specifically how you feel you can best achieve your goals through cooperation, through working together. So Dr. Carson.
Thank you. Everyone in this panel has talked about the value and the effectiveness of our collaborative relationships across business organizations and government organizations and educational organizations and not-for-profits in this community. And that is truly a differentiating factor. It's a factor that makes people want to come here and makes people want to stay here. You know, I would say we want to educate our students so that they could live and work anywhere in the world, but we also want to behave in a way that makes our visitors and our residents alike consider Lafayette a destination of choice and a place where it is that they want to be. When you could be anywhere else, what can we do to make you want to be here in Lafayette? And that's very critical. So I'm going to talk about just a couple of initiatives where I think that we can anticipate that there will be collaboration. There always is engagement of everybody at every table, and that is so rewarding and so much more effective. But a few projects we're going to be focusing on in the upcoming years, in the next 5 years, that I think have a very good chance of success, and in doing so have a very good chance of continuing to strengthen our community. The first one I want to talk about is continued expansion of what we call the Opportunity Machine. Opportunity Machine is a business incubator, accelerator. It's a program right now that's supported by LEDA, but eventually the idea is that it will be an independent entity and it will be very viable. What it really does is it enables entrepreneurs, and we do very much have the entrepreneurial spirit, and we need to foster it. We value it and we need to foster it. It enables entrepreneurs to come to a place, a physical location, and have a variety of different supports that they need, and just an address. And sometimes you need an address. Now that's real important, particularly as we look at expanding internationally. We are at UL this year very much focusing on all things international. We are focusing on internationalizing our curriculum. We are focusing on making our students global citizens, not because we want them to leave and work away, but we definitely want to prepare students that have the capability to be able to do that should they choose. We are focusing on bringing more international students to our campus and making it viable for them, and we are looking at developing exchange relationships. So if our students want to go study for a semester in France or in China or in Argentina, that they're able to do that. That is very, very critical. As a result of that, from the economic development perspective, we become much more attractive to international businesses. And one of the things the Opportunity Machine is doing, and it has two locations. One is in the Light, and that is for organizations that need the access to our technological capabilities, which are great. And I'll come back to that in a moment. And one is downtown at a location called the Switch, where there's where you don't need supercomputing, or you don't need visualization, or you don't need access to the Lani or the Lambda Rail. But what we're able to do, and what we're beginning to be very successful and are very, very close to landing a few international companies because of those resources that we have here. That is a joint venture in which many, many organizations and many entities in Lafayette are represented. So it's UL, and it's LEDA, and it's the Chamber, and it's LCG, and many of these projects. We also engage the Community Foundation. The Community Foundation is very important for our nonprofits, and it really organizes and makes sure our nonprofits are supported in the way that they need. So the incubators is very, very important. The international focus is very important for us. We would very much like to be home, to be headquartered to at least American operations of many international companies. Related to this, we have begun discussions in the last few months over the development of an international high school, which could take a variety of different forms. But obviously one of our strengths and advantages here in Lafayette and in all of Acadiana is our immersive education. So our language immersive education, which does so much more than teaches students just how to speak a second language, but really teaches students how to think globally and how really to learn, and the value of going out and seeking diversity and understanding and embracing differences. So that's real critical. Right now in Lafayette Parish School System, we're teaching Spanish, French, and Chinese, but after you get through 8th grade, there's no opportunity for you to continue your immersive education beyond that. We want to do something, anything. There is no sense of ownership or no sense of how this would ideally look, but we want to do something to make sure students can continue that immersive education through high school, and then hopefully carry that over into SLCC or to UL, so we can develop what is regarded as a globally competent labor force that will further incentivize international companies to want to come here, and will further make us a community, a quality of life community that's full of culture and art and heritage and global awareness that continues to make Lafayette a place where people want to live and work and learn.
I find it interesting that Dr. Carlson refers to the immersion programs for French, Spanish, and Chinese. I'm still working on English. Yeah. I'm blessed. I was born here, I was raised here, and I've managed to have a very successful career in the community and not have to leave the area. One thing that's always impressed me about Lafayette is while today we can claim about 500,000 in population, if you look at the parish and our surrounding neighbors, the degree of separation in the rest of the country is like 5%. In Acadiana, it's about like that. On any given day, any week, or any month, you're going to run across folks more than one time because of the interactivity in the various relationships that we have. And most of those relationships are centered on improving our community. And that's critical. Relationships mean everything in Lafayette. For example, LPESC, which by the way is the Lafayette Parish Educational Stakeholders Council. We, at every school board meeting, have a contingent of membership there, ranging from 6 to 18 people. And we don't contribute that much, but the mere fact that we are there showing an interest in what the school board is considering on their agenda that night is critical. Listening to what Dr. Cooper is presenting that night and taking it with us forward as we vision education for the future, it's important. So it's all about relationships. As a chamber, we have identified two goals: education and the comprehensive plan. And we're going to accomplish those goals by engaging, and I like the word Dr. Carlson used, we have to engage our members. If we don't have people within our organization who have enough interest to show up at a school board meeting or attend a community forum for the comprehensive plan, then shame on us when we down the line complain about the end product. And that's the important point that we have to make about our input into the educational system, into the comprehensive plan. The WRT folks, the Comprehensive Planning Organization, will be in town in the latter part of April. 6 public meetings will be held. It behooves us to attend those meetings because I can look back and see the way that the current school board or the system's master plan was put together. On a good night, we had 20 people from the general public. Now, can we profess to say that that was the mandate provided by the public? No. Going back to LINC, which was the original steering committee that created a master plan, started in 1998, committed in 2001. On a good night, we had maybe 15. This is a unique, a rare opportunity for the Chamber of Commerce not only to engage its membership, but to educate the membership as to the critical nature of these two endeavors and to broaden that message to the entire community. If we don't take advantage of the opportunities that exist this year, then shame on us. I'm going to be retired in 4 or 5, maybe 6 years. So the future is more or less within that time period. But I'm looking at the folks who own staff at the Chamber. These are folks in their late 20s, early 30s, who are going to spend their lives here. What will we leave behind, not only as a legacy, but what will we leave behind in terms of providing them not only the opportunity, but the reason to stay here and to raise their families? We got to do something. We got to be involved. And if we aren't, we have blown a great opportunity. And we're going to make every effort within the Chamber of Commerce to do that.
Let me just, I guess, frame this up. The whole partnership and collaborative message that I think we're all trying to portray here is absolutely wonderful. But, you know, we use collaboration kind of loosely, kind of like we use transparency. See, to me, transparency just means you're being honest, but we have to make up this word for it, you know. So part of the process of collaboration means, in its finest sense, is that we all come to a room and I leave with some of your money. Now, that means some of my money, some of their money, some of the, you know, but the whole point of collaboration is together we're stronger than if we're apart. And you can't say we're together and still have your little silos. So I'm going to give you some concrete examples of how we're trying to make this work. As you know, we've got these task forces. We've got 10 of them that are working right now. We have a lot of community and business input. 100 Black Men, LAPESC, all of them have been invited to the table. And it's a laborious task because we're examining every part of our school district. But I want to give you 4 examples of how we're going to have partnership in order for us to be the world-class school system that you want and deserve. One of those is the early childhood. All the research in the world says that birth to 5 is critically important. Unfortunately, we don't own very much of that as a school district. The local child cares, the local Head Starts, the family child care homes, they own that. So part of our collaborative effort has to be that we bring them into the fold so we can together create this seamless birth to 5 program that's quality. Not just saying we got them in a child care. That's not good enough. It's in a child care that's giving them the right things. So we're going to have to go to United Way and say, United Way, you can't run this early childhood thing, but you can sure be a part of it. You know, we got to go to the city and say, look, we may need to look at some of your facilities, and could we work out a deal to use your facilities, because we've got at least 1,000 4-year-olds right now that we don't even know where they are. and we have 2,300 children that start school every year. So as we get this data together, we're trying to figure out who's not being served, identify those children and get them served. But we've got to have everybody to do that. Another example is our health and wellness program. See, I think that's the second most essential thing we can do other than early childhood. We've got to make sure all of our children are healthy. And we can't make excuses. Everybody's got to be healthy. And so how do you do that? Well, I can't do it as a school district, but if I can bring in the local pediatricians and I can bring in the Lourdes and the FQHCs, all the federally qualified health centers and the Lafayette General, all those people to say, I've got a structure here, but we're going to need you to help us fill in the gaps, and we're going to do this by using Medicaid dollars. And in order to do Medicaid, you have to have everybody's cooperation. Now the question is, do you want all of your children healthy? Well, everybody says yes. But to do that, you're going to have to give up some things and compromise and create a new system. Because right now we know there are a lot of kids in Lafayette that don't get the services that they need. And it is not fair for a child not to get therapy when my child would get it. So we've got to look, and we've got to have partnerships for that. But we think we can make that work. Another part of this is the facilities. I can't even ask for partnerships yet until I can figure out what's wrong with our own system, because we've got a terrible system of how we maintain, clean, keep our buildings up. I can't very well go and ask for a bond issue when I can't even take care of what I have. So this whole issue of clean schools and partnerships and facilities, we've got to work with Joey and say, how can we work together to maybe open up our schools, and you don't have to build a new recreation center. We're willing to open up our schools 24/7, and you figure out how to staff them or whatever, a Boys and Girls Club. So that whole issue of facilities can't be just, oh, the school district wants to pass a bond issue. I think we've got to do it in conjunction with what's happening with the city, what's happening with ULL, what the chamber's thinking. We just can't do this by ourselves, and we shouldn't. And then another area that's essential is this whole school to career. We've been talking about that. We think we have a really good school to career program, but we don't. We don't. Now there's a lot of world-class things that are going on in Lafayette Parish schools right now. Don't get me wrong. You can't diminish the worth of what's here. It's really good, but we're only about halfway there. So when we talk about this whole school to career thing, we have to really engage the community to say, what do you need? You know, our kids to look like, feel like, act like, you know, when they come out of school. So that's the kind of conversation we need. We can't just do lip service. That's the whole thing with David Thibodeau, Tech, that we were about to do something that I thought was a huge mistake. We were about to create something that was second class, and we don't need second class in Lafayette.
We don't have any choice at all. You know, for those of you that haven't heard, yesterday Lafayette was picked as the second most optimistic city in America. We are, we won something last year, best tastiest city in America. But more important than that, we have the #1 wage growth, #1 in America. We have the 6th fastest growing economy in America. And at a time when more cities are losing middle class than are gaining middle class, we have the 6th fastest growing middle class. Why is that important to this discussion? Because others want our spot. And competition forces our hand on a lot of things. And so if we're willing to rest on our laurels and sit back and enjoy those things, I can tell you 5 years from now, we're going to look up and see that we're not 6th anymore. We're not vying for 1st anymore. We're trying to get on the top 100 list instead. And so we have to do it. We have to collaborate. And it starts, for me, I think, with communication. The very first night that I met Dr. Cooper, he and Dr. Savoy and I decided we would at least get together once a month just to talk, whatever it is. Within a few days after Dr. Cooper got here, he mentioned that he wanted to really focus, I believe, on Northside. He wanted to go to that school. I think the building is in good shape. The facility itself is okay. And within a week, we had a staff meeting, and I asked our directors, I said, what can we do in the immediate area, the periphery of Northside? What can we do to make it visibly different? whether it's picking up trash, what can we do with planning, zoning, and codes with our codes department? Are there codes that are being violated right now that we can help? Can the police do something? Public Works with the ditches. And I said, I want, when Dr. Cooper's doing his thing internally with the schools, I want people to drive by and say, wow, that guy made a difference. Because he's got to have those successes. And that's a little success. That's what we call low-hanging fruit. And so it's something that we could do. Doesn't cost taxpayers any real money. It's not it's something, it's our responsibility anyway, but we can put a little added effort. So then he's ready to go to Lafayette High. People say, you know what? He made a difference over there. They made a difference over there. So obviously, Dr. Savoy and I have been working together pretty much since he's been in office, since he's been in his position. And as I said, I don't think we have any choice. I think you need to demand it of your elected officials and other officials that you depend on in this community. It's interesting to me because I'm a private sector person in a government position right now, and I know that a lot of the accolades that I just mentioned are because of the private sector. But I also know, and we all know this in this state better than anybody, that bad government can chase all that away. You know, and I do believe, looking up here, when 3/4 of this panel is government, in one form or another, we can't deny the need, and we can't deny the responsibility of what government has to a community. So, can't wait to get back in the private sector. But while I'm here, I'm gonna do everything that I can to help make this community what it is. And I can't do it. We can't do it as Lafayette Consolidated Government without the help of all parts of this community, including not just them, but you too. So, thank you again.
Okay, so we'll take a few minutes for questions from the audience, and we'll ask you to address the question to all the panelists, and we'll give each of you a minute to respond. So, yes, sir.
Do I come up there? Or?
I think you can, if you can stand
right
from
here?
there. Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine.
I'm Colin Miller. I'm currently working as chair of Creative Action, which is a new group that puts on a series of events called the Creative Economy Series. And I would like to say that I'm very, very encouraged by the discussion that just happened. I think each one of you talked about a number of things that our group, Creative Action, is interested in talking about. Everywhere from education to economic development to supporting culture and preserving the arts community, which is a huge part of our quality of life here. It's one of the things that makes people want to stay beyond just what we consider to be the everyday drivers. You know, can you find a job? Can you support yourself? Can you support your family? But with that said, I don't want to go on with that too much. With that said, how and any of you can jump at this. What role do you think the arts play here as an industry and as a real engine for economic development in the region? And what do you think that government and our institutions and the chamber, what role do you think that these groups play in supporting our arts community?
Okay, so we'll start with Dr. Carson.
I'm really glad you asked that question because, Mr. Durrell went over the enormous set of rankings and listings and national and global recognition that we have. And there's no way we would have been on many of those lists had it not been for our strong arts community. When I speak of arts, I'm really talking about culture and arts and heritage. And I think those are all in Lafayette as much as any place, really just very intermingled. Culture and arts is necessary for economic development. There is no question, because the quality of life issue, people want to be where they feel like they can have an enlightened life, and that is necessary. At UL, it is part of our branding. We feel we have a moral obligation to contribute to the preservation of the culture in a non-trivial way, in a non-stereotypical way, but in a very meaningful way. We have a new degree program that's moving forward in traditional music that's unlike anywhere else. We have a moving image arts, which is digital media that includes digital music as well as gaming and actually film, motion pictures. Primarily, we do a lot of documentaries that are culturally sensitive documentaries, and so we take that very seriously, not in just the College of the Arts, but we take our contribution at UL in that area and every college very, very seriously and recognize the value of it.
One of the challenges we have as a chamber is how do we communicate to that creative culture, those young people, not only under 40, but under 30. we are now dealing with a community with which we have no extended relationship. This is a new challenge for us, a new endeavor. And sometimes you can teach an old dog some new tricks, and we're learning how to more effectively use the social media. A couple of weeks ago, and I think we have one coming up next week, we're using the social media to put together the creative folks in an impromptu ad hoc session to start talking about issues in which they have concern, that they have in common. And we brought together them with a person who understands how to moderate that type of gathering. So we have to look at not how we've done things in the past, is how are we going to change? How are we going to use the tools of communications to reach that younger generation? Because that younger generation is not necessarily looking at the traditional chamber model to get their job done. So that's our challenge.
Well, I guess I'll just tell you this right off the bat to show you our commitment to the arts. One of our task forces, and remember I told you there are like 10 of them, is totally devoted to the arts. That's how important it is to us as a school district. We have some really great art, programs in the schools in some places. But the problem is we don't have things in every school. And so one of the things that we're asking our task force to do is to come up with a plan so that we can have excellence in our teaching, in our opportunities for all the children, no matter where they go to school. And that may look different in different schools, but we have to be able to come back to that. And we fight the battle every day. Oh no, we just have to be doing reading, writing, and arithmetic. And what we absolutely know, all the research, and again, everything we're doing is research-based, all the research says if you have a quality arts program, your test scores are going to go up, your attendance is going to go up, your behavior is going to be better. Everything that we want to have happen will happen. But sometimes we dismiss the arts as, no, it's not what we're being tested on. In fact, it is. It's the key to a lot of what's going to happen with our test scores.
I've often said it takes a complete community to be a great community. And I think I'm a perfect person to answer the question that you asked, because when I first got in office a little over 8 years ago, I didn't get it. I enjoyed certain things that we had in Lafayette, didn't appreciate it the way I probably should have. But I've come to understand a lot. And for one thing, I talked about the competition a while ago. Those businesses that I want to have locate here, who will give money to the nonprofits, who will help support this community, help support education, a lot of those businesses can locate anywhere. A fast food restaurant, a shopping center needs 30,000 cars. They can locate a lot of places. But the kind of jobs that I think we really are trying to add to the community to support those businesses can locate anywhere in the world. And one of the things, Lafayette is the only major city in the state of Louisiana in the last census that even gained over 1%. We gained 10%. The parish gained about 16%. The closest to us was 0.7%. I believe that it is our art and culture community that sets us apart more than any other single thing that we have, in addition to the oil and gas industry. But still, art and culture there's other oil and gas cities, but that's what sets us apart the most, and I think we need to continue to nurture it. We spend millions of dollars on recreation in Lafayette. We spend a little bit on arts and culture, and that's recreation for a whole other group of people, so they deserve it too. So thank you.
Okay, is there another question? I have time for another, sir.
Just more a comment and somewhat of a question. One, I think Dr. Cooper's right on point. I serve on the Teach for America board, and last year a study was brought to us where they looked at kindergarten infants in Louisiana, and they sent out 100 inquiries to random kindergarten teachers to guesstimate how many of their students would graduate from high school. And the guesstimate was 10%, the first study 14 years ago. So it's actually come to fruition. They were slightly off. It was actually about 9.2%. We always hear the number. Ninth grade entrance, about 55% graduate. But if you go to kindergarten, as Dr. Cooper has, it's astonishing. Many of them are leaving before. And something else, we as a community need to support his efforts. We in Louisiana have a third of our kids in private schools. So many of the leaders of Louisiana are not really involved in education. They don't have a dog in the hunt. but we really have a dog in the hunt. And we as a community, as leaders of the community, need to be very strong in our support and his efforts. That is the key. Get them out of high school. That's so important. That's the future. And just quality of life issues. Weekend before last, I'm a scout leader. We took the troop on the St. Tammany Trace. This bike trail, phenomenal, fantastic. Meet people from all over the country there. It's a quality of life issue. Well done, underpasses over the roadways. And we need that here. We're starting it. You know, and we think, well, we're gonna have, we have a bike trail, and it's not just bikes, it's biking, walking, and so forth. It can go to, ultimately to Lake Martin. But it should go on to the Chapel. Lafayette is linked to the Chapel basically. So,
Okay.
we should be thinking of a bike trail. Just one more thing. We have these sand pits that are just worthless water holes right now that are already public. It wouldn't take much imagination to scrape that sand around those things into beaches. They're spring fed, you know, we already own them as a public, they're part of the airport. But they're down in the swamps kind of, but there's an opportunity to build parks that everybody can enjoy. That's a mile from that. So.
It's certainly a lot to talk about, and how important it is to engage all sectors of society into the discussion, and that creative process, I think, can begin, or can continue, really. Do we have time for one more question? Okay, Dane?
Dane Toto. Ms. Dura, you were talking about how we're on the top of the list of a lot of things, tastiest town, and things like that. And with this new movement of the green being the new black, just thinking how we as a community can make our impact of being here less environmentally effective, and how we can get our schools, community, and businesses to be more green.
Well, you know, and maybe that's a little role that government plays, and I think we've really stepped it up to lead by example with our compressed natural gas buses. That, to me, accomplishes many things, and it's not just our buses we've contracted. In fact, we've started getting vehicles in now, the other vehicles. And we're building a station through a grant from the state that is required to be open to the public. Apache Gas is building one farther away, so that ultimately we'll have several stations around town where it makes it more reasonable for people to start really looking at it. And I think like computers and fiber and things, broadband, those prices will start coming down as competition gets into the market, and they start devising and you know, creating other ways of converting it more efficiently. So I think we're definitely leading by example. I mean, I think the horse farm, of course, does that. The bike trail, we just opened a piece of it, and it's not the bike trail I don't think that Mr. Shuffler has in mind, because it's all on concrete mostly. But it's in the city, but it's a start, as he said. And that's a bike trail that we're hoping will go into St. Martin and St. Landry Parish and give people 25 or 30 miles of the kind of thing that he experienced in St. Tammany Parish. I do believe that people are looking, you know, we go on vacation. We don't go on vacation, well, maybe Disney World, but we don't go on vacation where there's not, we don't get to experience nature. And I think people want the same thing, and we can provide that with them here, for them here. So I think we're on the right track and beginning it, you know.
I'd like to just make a quick comment about that, because part of that starts with, you know, our goal is to create a whole new generation of young people. And part of that idea of being green, you know, and all of its many meanings, I think we have to teach that to our children. And I don't think we do a very good job of that. We do hit and miss, but I think that has to be part of our core reason for being as a public school system, is to begin to teach those kinds of things that are going to make you have readily available citizens that are going to be running businesses and working who know that. Because what we have to remember, like, for instance, recycling, that wasn't started by a bunch of adults. That was a bunch of kids who got together and started that. We don't do that in Lafayette Parish schools, really. So why not? So those are the kind of questions that we have to start asking ourselves. You know, what are those things that we can do to address that kind of issue there, and not get lost, and I keep saying it, in all the hoopla of testing and all that. There's other very meaningful things that don't get tested that have to be taught.
And it's interesting that you bring recycling to the conversation. We take it for granted, But that's one of our successes. We lead the state, if not the entire region of the United States, in our recycling efforts. So do we need to take it to the school system and broaden the impact of it? Absolutely. But we've been very successful in that effort.
You know, in Lafayette, 50% of our population is under the age of 34 and very, very socially engaged, and it's very important to understand what their needs are. But more than that, Dr. Cooper talked about us understanding what employers want, and we know that employers today don't necessarily want someone who knows a specific length operation or a specific programming language, but they want someone who has a more liberal education, and part of that is being environmentally sensitive and culturally aware and all of those things. And so that is not just something that little kids should know. That is something that organizations who employ people and pay them want their workers to know. So, we started a brand new school of geoscience. It's multidisciplinary. We do a lot in coastal sustainability. We're very much reorienting our programs toward that. We do a lot of alternate energy. We'll burn anything. We'll burn alligator fat or any kind of tree bark or whatever, see if we can make fuel out of it. Obviously, we have a big oil and gas, a big petroleum presence on campus to support our traditional industries, but we're evolving there as well.
All right. Well, I think we're probably out of broadcast time, but I do want to certainly thank our panelists, Dr. Paula Carson, Mr. Bruce Conk, Dr. Pat Cooper, and City Parish President Joey Durrell. Thank you all for coming. Certainly thanks to AOC and Community Media, the Lafayette League of Women Voters who are responsible for putting this together. Thank you for your comments. We certainly have a lot to continue to discuss in our community, certainly as some of the ideas that Mr. Scheffler raised. So thank you again for being here, and we hope that you will join us. Our next public meeting will be on privatization of government assets and services. We're going to have representatives from LUS Fiber, Waste Management, and the Lafayette Parish Sheriff's Office. That's going to be same time, same place, but on April the 4th. Thank you very much.